Did you know that 40% of engine failures are caused by overheating? This leads to repairs that range from $500 to over $7,000. In this video, you'll learn how to make your car's cooling system last forever. And trust me, don't skip around, because at the end, we're revealing not one, but two bonus tips. One is a trick even seasoned mechanics often forget, and the other? It's a secret DIY test that can help you avoid replacing your radiator for no reason. Let's dive in. Tip number 7. Use the right coolant and top it up regularly. One of the worst myths that can ruin your engine is that all coolants are the same. Coolant is one of the most sensitive fluids in your car because it has many functions. Besides absorbing excess heat from the engine, coolant reduces rust and corrosion because coolant is a mixture of antifreeze and water, so it protects against freezing. The major danger of using the wrong coolant is engine rust. Unfortunately, it might take up to a year before you notice any problems. If you've been replacing your radiator often, using the wrong coolant might be the culprit. But that's if you're lucky. The worst-case scenario is that the bearings melt or the engine head cracks. This could set you back over $4,000. Only use the coolant recommended in your manual. Fortunately, you don't have to do this often. Coolant can last up to 7 years or 150,000 miles. Here's an expert tip. Always use distilled water when diluting antifreeze for your coolant. While some instructions say you can use tap or bottled water, it is not ideal for modern engines. Distilled water does not contain minerals, salt, or other impurities found in tap water. As a result, it does a better job of preventing corrosion. These impurities can also form deposits within the cooling system that can cause overheating. Alternatively, you can use pre-diluted coolant. This ensures that you have the right ratio of antifreeze and water. Before you top up your coolant, inspect the coolant reservoir. If you see debris or notice that the color has changed, you need to take the next step. Tip number 6. Don't ignore coolant flushes. Did you know that 35% of drivers delay regular maintenance like fluid changes? They only do so when a problem arises. By then, it is usually too late and they spend thousands of dollars on repairs. Most manuals, like Toyota's, recommend coolant changes after 30,000 miles for silicate-based coolants and 100,000 miles for extended drain coolants. Silicate-based coolants are usually green, while extended drain is gold or orange. However, most experts recommend a coolant flush every 30,000 to 60,000 miles. Just like every other fluid, coolants break down. When it happens, corrosion can quickly build up in your radiator, and the engine might begin to overheat. So, how do you know when you need a coolant flush? If there's a sweet smell from under the hood, it means that the coolant is overheating. Other signs include constant overheating and a gurgling noise when you start the engine. The gurgling sound means there are air pockets in the engine where the coolant should be. The most obvious sign that you need a coolant flush is visible dirt or color changes. You also need a flush if you've been using the wrong coolant. While the majority of drivers are diligent with coolant levels, very few know about the next tip. Tip number 5. Replace your thermostat every 4 to 5 years. This is the most overlooked part of the cooling system, but it is arguably the second most important. The coolant and thermostat work together to keep the engine's temperature under control. When the engine runs too hot, it burns oil and can also lead to increased fuel consumption. The thermostat is not easy to locate, as it is hidden between the engine and the radiator. When the engine is cold, the thermostat stays closed to prevent coolant from keeping the temperature down. This allows the car to reach its optimal temperature quicker. When the engine reaches its operating temperature, which is between 195 degrees Fahrenheit and 220 degrees Fahrenheit, the thermostat opens. If the thermostat sticks shut, your car will overheat quickly, and it will be difficult to determine why. If the thermostat sticks open, It will flood the engine with coolant and can cause irreparable harm. That is why it is good practice to replace the thermostat often. A typical thermostat should last for about 10 years or 100,000 miles. But that's not a risk you should take. Replace it every 4 to 5 years, or have it inspected during the coolant flush. Most mechanics will do this anyway, but mention it just to be safe. When you replace the thermostat, only use OEM parts. They cost about $25 more than aftermarket parts, but they are worth it. This could save you thousands of dollars in repairs, so it's not worth the risk. Many modern cars use electrically assisted or map-controlled thermostats. These are more precise, but they are also more feeble, so they should also be replaced every 4 years. The next thing you need to do won't cost you any money, but ignoring it can cost you your engine. But before that, if you're learning something new, hit that subscribe button. All right, let's keep moving. Tip number 4. Regularly examine the radiator cap. There is a myth that the radiator cap is not important. As long as any cap keeps it covered, you're fine. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Contrary to popular belief, the radiator cap's main job isn't just to prevent coolant from spilling. Its main task is to maintain a certain amount of pressure in the cooling system. Caps have different ratings, with an average range of 13 to 18 psi. Some new cars exceed 20 psi. If the right pressure isn't maintained, the coolant will boil at low temperatures. That is why you should inspect the radiator cap often. At the very least, do this before every major trip. Check to see if the rubber is cracked. When this happens, the cap won't be able to hold as much pressure as it should. Also, check the plastic seal. After a few years, these pieces might fall off on their own, and the spring in the cap will naturally degrade over time. Don't wait until there is a fault before you replace the radiator cap. Get a new one every 4 to 5 years. Ensure that you only use the pressure rating recommended in your manual. If you waited too long and the cap was already busted, the radiator could have been damaged. We've shared a tip at the end that will help you know for certain. First, a bit of controversy. Tip number 3, don't let the radiator hoses crack. Radiator hoses are another easy-to-miss component. They carry coolant between the engine and the radiation and to the water pump. If a hose leaks, your engine will overheat and could experience catastrophic failure. That is why it is important to inspect them often and replace them as soon as you find any faults. An OEM radiator should last at least a decade or 100,000 miles. However, different factors like using the wrong coolant could shorten their lifespans. There are 2 ways to inspect the hose. The first one is a cold inspection. When the engine is cold, squeeze the hoses. A good hose will be firm. If you hear a crunching sound, it means that the rubber has begun to deteriorate. As you squeeze the hoses, also check for leaks on the body or at the ends. The second thing you should do is a warm inspection. When the engine is running, check for any swelling or bulges on the hose. If there is any swelling around the clamps, you need a new hose. Expert tip: instead of waiting for your hose to crack, prolong its life by using an additive. Spray AT205 Reseal to keep the rubber supple for longer. This additive is designed to prevent leaks by pouring it into the engine oil bay. However, you can also spray it on rubber hoses to prevent cracking. Additives might be a controversial topic, but this one works. Spray the rubber hoses once a year. However, if you experience extreme weather, you can do this every 6 months. Speaking of extreme weather, this next tip is crucial during summer. Tip number 2, keep your radiator clean. Now, we come to the largest and most expensive part of the cooling system, the radiator. The radiator releases the excess heat absorbed by the coolant into the atmosphere. Without it, the coolant will run too hot, which will also cause the engine to overheat. Due to their position in front of the engine, radiators easily get dirty, especially during summer. Particles of different sizes, from mud to bugs and even plastic bags, get sucked into the radiator and restrict airflow. When this happens, the coolant remains hot, which then causes the engine to overheat. That is why it is crucial to always keep the radiator clean. Inspect the radiator and condenser every once in a while. The condenser is usually in front of the radiator, so when bugs and dirt get on it, it will also affect it. If you see any debris, simply spray it with a water hose. Aim to clean your radiator at least once a year, ideally with distilled water. Then, when you do a coolant flush, the mechanic can thoroughly clean the radiator inside and out. While you're inspecting your radiator at home, there's something else you need to do that most drivers ignore until it's too late. Tip number 1, inspect the cooling fans. While many drivers regularly check fluid levels, most have never inspected the radiator fan. The radiator, or cooling fan, or fans, helps to keep the radiator cool, especially when the car is moving slowly or is stationary. When your car is moving quickly, air rushes into the grill and cools the radiator. When the car slows down, the cooling fans force air into the radiator to keep its temperature down. This makes the cooling fan just as important as the radiator. Checking to see if the cooling fan is working is simple. Turn the car on and put the AC on full blast. If the fans are spinning, they're working. If your car has 2 fans but only one is working, it can still cause overheating. Cooling fans usually stop working because of an electrical problem. You or an auto professional would need to inspect the fuse, the relay, or the sensor. The wiring or the fan motor might also be the problem. Whatever the problem is, get it fixed immediately. While your car can technically move without a fan, the radiator will quickly overheat, leading to costly repairs. And if you've been falling behind on cooling system maintenance, the next 2 bonus tips could be your engine's saving grace. Here's the first bonus step that even seasoned mechanics sometimes skip. Number 1, bleed air pockets after a coolant flush. Every time you flush or top up your coolant, there's a chance air gets trapped in the system. These air pockets create an airlock, which blocks coolant from circulating properly. That can cause localized overheating, especially near the thermostat or engine head, and it won't always show on your dashboard gauge. Bleeding the system is simple. Park your car on a slight incline with the radiator or reservoir cap as the highest point. Turn the engine on and set the heater to full blast. As the engine warms up, the thermostat will open and you'll see bubbles rise as air escapes. Keep topping up until the bubbles stop. Some cars have a dedicated bleed valve. Check your manual. If the air isn't removed, even a freshly flushed system can overheat and cause serious engine damage. This small step makes a big difference and gives you real peace of mind. And once you've bled the system properly, there's one more check. Bonus number 2, how to inspect the radiator for clogs. A clogged radiator is a death sentence for your car. It can cause a blown head gasket, overheating, or even a cracked engine block. Fortunately, you don't need a mechanic to find it. All you need is a thermometer. With the engine running, take temperature readings of different parts of the radiator. If any part is much cooler than the others, you have a clog. That's because the coolant is not getting to that part of the radiator, so it won't be as hot as the others. If it's clogged, there's no need to panic. You can buy a radiator flush and unclog it yourself and save $200. If the radiator is badly damaged, buy an aftermarket replacement. An auto shop might try to convince you to spend $1,000 on an OEM, but it's a scam. Aftermarket parts do the same job and cost up to $600 less. Your car's cooling system is very sensitive, but it is also easy to maintain. As long as you inspect the different parts often and use the right coolant, you won't have any major problems. However, engine maintenance doesn't stop there. If you want to avoid expensive repairs, watch this next video. doing, this will make your engine run like new again. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video.